Onkwarihwa'shon, and welcome to Onkwarihwa'shon television. This is our 6th episode, and we've been talking about laws, lawmaking in Kahnawake, the community decision-making process, the Kahnawake Legislative Coordinating Commission, and a whole lot more. And I realize, and we all do, that for many it seems like a pretty dry subject, but really it is so important. And the reason why we do the program the way we do is so we don't rush and just try and squeeze everything into a little 3-minute or 5-minute bit. We try and talk to the people who are involved in the process and really flesh things out. And we hope that you appreciate that, and we're glad you could join us today. And joining us on the program this time around, once again, is Ron Skye, who is the Director of Justice Services here in Kahnawake, and he's been on the program before, and Chief Mike Bush, who is not only involved in justice as a portfolio chief, but also as part of the Chief's Oversight Committee, is part and parcel to what has been going on in terms of the Legislative Coordinating Commission, which has had some developments of late. We'd like to welcome you to the program, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah, good to have you here. Before we get to justice, which has been moving along, and we'll have that update in a moment, the Kahnawake Legislative Coordinating Commission itself has had some news of late, and Linda Delormier, who had been doing this job as the coordinator of the commission on a half-time basis for the past couple of years, has moved on, and now we have a full-time coordinator with Gahande Horn-Miller. So I just want to get some thoughts on that, the difference of having somebody half-time and somebody who's going to be there all the time. We'll start with you, Ron.
Well, obviously, it makes a large difference. I mean, we've now had the I guess the experience of working with the whole process since 2008. We understand, and there's been changes throughout that time frame to where we are currently. Linda did a real bang-up job, in dedicating the time that she had to facilitate the process. But like anything else, as you evolve and you expand and you want more, there's a requirement there to dedicate more time and resources, meaning human and financial, to what we need to do. So it's Gahande's a real welcome addition. She brings, I think, a lot of academic knowledge to the whole process or the program itself. She's well versed in traditional methods as well as contemporary methods. I think she's got a real open mind, a good disposition, I think, as far as the position is concerned. So we're really looking forward to the future, of what we're going to be doing as far as the Kahnawake Legislative Coordinating Committee is concerned.
Mm-hmm. And Mike, of course, you've had a chance to be involved in the first meeting with Gahande. She does bring something a little different, but again, doing it full-time, probably a big help.
Well, that makes the biggest difference. I mean, now we have somebody who can concentrate or focus directly on the issues at hand and the business of the coordinating commission, as opposed to before. There was a certain distraction. Do I have enough time to make this meeting? Do I have enough time to put together something for the next meeting? This is going to be a little bit more concentrated, and I'm looking forward to seeing how she works out.
Mm-hmm. And we'd like to really welcome her along, and it's been a pretty good start. And thanks again to Linda. There's a lot on the agenda now. For a while, it seemed to be, quiet because the Justice Commission has been working along with the working group to get the draft together after the initial hearings were done a couple of years back now. And in the meantime, we had a couple of other pieces of legislation going in. We had the membership, which started last year, and only recently, as a matter of fact, as we're taping this, news of electoral reform coming up. So there's lots to talk about, and I guess now is a good time to have somebody at full time, now that the hopper is getting full. Let's get back to justice. We haven't talked too much about it of late. I guess through the summer, quietly, a lot of backroom work was going on to make sure the draft is being worked on, and then it comes back to the working group. Where are we right now? Because we've said in the past that we think we're getting close to a draft. So where are we right now?
Well, anything of this nature and magnitude, and I'm going to use that word, magnitude. I mean, I still believe that it's kind of the foundation of what we have as far as governance is concerned. It's kind of regulates the morality of your society. And it provides the checks and balances for people to have trust and confidence in public safety and security as a whole. We obviously don't take the work that we're doing lightly, and there's a lot of discussion once we get into a specific subject area, be it administrative tribunals or using skana sundu, which is the restorative justice practices, or even a more formalized adversarial system. The discussion that takes around it leads us to a lot of different areas. And we always use the what-if scenarios, and that becomes time-consuming. But it's a good discussion because we really have to look at those what-if scenarios. And we have to use those what-if scenarios in relation to the requests that the community came forward with in all the consultations that we had to address specific areas. So it does seem long, and it is long. But we have to have those discussions internally because we do have participation from community members, and their knowledge may not be the same as someone from a legal perspective or someone from a social perspective or from a policing perspective. So the interplay between everyone causes more discussion and more debate, and sometimes it's good because it does get heated at times, if you would, on philosophy questions, if you want, or ideology questions. And then we come back to what was actually said within the mandate, if you would, given by the community. And we always have to go back and look at that. What was actually said at those community consultations? Are we in line with that? And so it's time consuming. It is really, really time consuming. I'm kind of glad to say that at this point, we've got the, I guess, the more larger structure developed. What we're working now in subcommittees is procedural components in relation to the different areas that we've identified. We think that we've hit the target as far as what our mandate was concerned, but we'll only find that out for sure once it's given back to the community and we get feedback again. You know.
Yeah, the skeptics would say that, see that, they've done all that work without, they're just doing it in the back rooms, but I'm glad you mentioned the community representatives, because there are three and there's an alternate. They've been at every meeting.
Absolutely. In fact, we can't have a quorum or a meeting if we don't have at least three of them. And they have been very participatory, okay? And they have no difficulty saying what is on their mind or what they recall from what the hearings were about. So it's been very productive.
And a reminder that they were selected at the final, when the mandate was given, and people were asked if they were interested, or that each group chose their
They actually nominated them.
Yeah, that's correct. So now that we're in draft form, and I know this is, I'm going to be in the position of just the local journalist here saying, so when's it going to be ready? Is there any sort of estimate here? I mean, it's unfair. It's unfair. Yes, I do work on the file, but I'll ask as a community member or whatever, is this ever going to be ready? Is there a timeline? Do you have new goals? Where are we at in time, in terms of time?
Well, work in progress. We met, the Justice Commission met this morning, and the discussion we had is we're probably looking at around mid-December to have this wrapped up. As I said, there's three components that are left to be done, which is the procedural part. We have individuals from SCON and Sundu working with us in relation to that, the restorative justice component. They're doing good work, really doing good work. So once we receive that and have the technical team discussion again on, does this fit? Did we take into as much consideration as was possible within the community consultations? If we say yes, then we'll all sign off on it. It will go to the KLCC. From there, it will go to legal services to put it in the legal format, just the formatting part. Once that's done, then it's to the community for a 30-day review. And I said our target date is around the 15th of December.
Wow. All right. Chief Bush, as the elected chief on this group, what's been the biggest challenge for you? I'm sure community members seeing you on this program will say, so, you know, are you doing this, are you doing that, or they're not agreeing with certain things, or maybe they love it. But what's been the biggest challenge for you so far as this process unrolls?
Well, it works on two levels. One is we're trying something entirely new. It's never been done before, not to the extent that it's being done today in any case. And we're kind of feeling our way through it. And a lot of things we don't know. So we have to assume, we have to speculate, we have to guess as to how it could potentially work. Because you have to remember that this is a composite of all kinds of little, I shouldn't say little, but all kinds of justice initiatives, okay? ADR, for example, and the administrative tribunal, the adjudicative part of the court that everybody's used to, you know, and trying to fit them together to where they actually work together. That's been a big challenge. Because you don't just take pieces. It's not like putting hats on people, all right? These things have to work together. And we're looking at a complete justice system that's going to satisfy the needs of Kahnawake today and into the future. And we're trying to anticipate things that we haven't done in the past. So trying to incorporate all of that into one system has been a significant challenge. And, you know, the reason it's taken as long as it has is that we have to get a few people together as often as we can. And that's not always easy because you got vacations and you got, you know, people missing for a variety of reasons because of work and what have you. So trying to get it all put together physically has been a bit of a challenge also.
Yeah, I think some people, community members might think that just have a meeting, but life gets in the way sometimes. I mean, how many meetings have been delayed or we're short a couple of people because, you know, somebody passes away and you can't schedule that kind of thing.
We've had that occurrence. I mean, personally, I mean, I was off for almost 3 months, so, you know, with surgery. I mean, and even though they're still moving forward, there's still, you know, what happens in the meantime. There's a direction that you know we need to take, and I mean it's just part of the process, you know, and those are unforeseen delays, you know, and we have to live with it. We have to live with it.
When December, and let's assume we stay on schedule and we're able to present this in December. Now it goes out there, people are able to look at it. Where does the process go from there? We have a hearing, and then we go back basically to the drawing board and say, here's what we've come up with so far. What do you think? Is that it in a nutshell?
He just reminded me of the initial, we set up the initial information forums, and we were dealing with what, minus 30, minus 40 degree weathers, you know, trying to get people to come out. You just remind me, I hope that's not going to be a possibility again.
But it seemed like every time we had a justice meeting with the community, that the weather was either a snowstorm or you were minus 30, minus 35 degree weather. But we still had participation.
Yes, I remember because I went to a couple of those. And yeah, so when it actually happens, should people look at the same type? Because this is a type 1. We've been through this time and again, but this is a type 1 which has a different type of participation expectation. Do we go back into the same groups and all of that once we move on?
Process-wise, or procedural-wise, I think it would happen that way, because this type of legislation affects the whole community, society, Kahnawake. The opportunity to have that discussion and that debate and to formulate an opinion based on specific sections in an environment, you know, in 3 groups, I think would be more beneficial to and probably expedite the process. and because it is coming from the community. It's not directed from a governmental regulation, if you would. This is what supposedly the community wants as far as justice is concerned. So it's not going to be directed to them. They are going to direct it.
Actually, what it amounts to, it's a verification of what we've done. All right. The document that we'll put forward is going to be put back to the people, and they will be in the position to say, yes, you did what we expected you to do. Or they'll look at it and say, however, you forgot this, or you forgot that, or what about this, or what about that? Maybe you should have included this. So it's going to maintain the creative aspect. So it's not going to be done the first time we sit down with the groups, the three groups, and say, okay, we did it. I expect there's going to be some more interaction, and there's going to be further changes.
Oh, yeah. Definitely,
modifications. But I look forward to it.
And I think that discussion is going to happen. The questions are going to be, why did you write this way? Why did you put this in there? And from a community member, that explanation has to be given. I mean, and it touches on different aspects of law, if you would. And even if you think of or we take in consideration what the community said as far as not having to deal with major crimes. They were very adamant about that, saying we don't want to hear major crimes. Okay, but there's a restorative justice or the restorative process that we have over here. Does it touch? Could it be? Did we think about that at the time that said if an individual commits a serious crime either here or outside of a territory, what about the conciliation aspect? Can we have it here? It's still a part of a serious crime, but we didn't. That thought wasn't there at the time. So we will have to have this discussion, this back and forth, and the explanation given and the rationale why we feel that this is like this.
And not to mention the fact that there'll be an orientation towards the victim, which hasn't been the case in the past. So that's something that we're working on even today. So that's something different.
All right, well, the challenge is there, the work is underway, and we have some dates that we've put out there that hopefully we can reach, some goals. Gives us a chance to talk about some of the other things that are going on, and even though you're in justice both, and you're a council chief, you both sit on the Legislative Coordinating Commission, because at the end of the day, your job means you have to know what's going on, because these are laws, and the laws go to to the Court of Kahnawake or whatever it will be as we move along. So some other things that have come up of late gives us a chance to talk about. Some don't have much to say, and we look at membership, for example, just over, I guess it was last year around this time, there was some information that went out, there were meetings that were held, the law itself, the membership law, was re-presented, and surveys went out, and people were asked to comment on the law and their level of support for it, and a number of hearings. But then things slowed down, and unfortunately we had a change in staffing, and we didn't have somebody working in the membership department, heading the membership department. And now in the last month or so, Roseanne Morris, who was working in the Office of the Council of Chiefs and has been working for a long time in various capacities, she's taken over as the registrar of membership. This is going to have some sort of impact.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I mean, membership had moved ahead at about a year and a half ago to a certain degree. There was a change in staff that they had at the membership department, SDU. And Roseanne was eventually hired as the new registrar. Obviously, Roseanne brings a lot of knowledge and work experience working with OCC on political files and with the scenery, even as far as administrative responsibilities and writing the kind of the more technical documents, if you would, and translating them and interpreting them. So she brings a lot of experience to that position. And I'm sure that in the next little while that the initiative to bring the membership forward as far as the amendments to that law are obviously going to be her responsibility, and she'll be able to carry that ball very well.
Well, she brings a perspective too for her business when she worked for the federal government. I mean, she's familiar with their system, INAC, what used to be INAC. And she brings a perspective from that point of view into this membership question, which has to be considered because we keep getting beat up by Canada on the membership question. They use it as an excuse for everything. So she might be able to assist us on that level.
Yeah, it's good to know what
they're thinking.
Absolutely right. Well, we have to give her time to, I guess, get really familiar with things, and then we should see some movement there. In other developments, the sanitary conditions law, draft amendments to that, it's a type 2. Again, anybody who's been watching this show, we've tried to explain that as best we can, but type 2 laws are different. They're more regulatory in nature. The law goes back to 67 or 68. It's an older law, the original sanitary conditions law. At the time, it was a different Kahnawake. And now, as people have been saying, we really need to be, we really need to find ways where we can protect our environment. We find that our laws don't meet the needs. So it was brought forth that we amend the law so that we can create regulations within the law. But it's not creating a new law, it's just amending for regulations. So it becomes a type 2. And we had hearings, we had the first 30-day notice which went out there, and actually people were not too much, there was not too much conflict about the what the amendments that were being proposed.
The changes.
Yeah, it was more about the process and are we doing this right? And we said on this program and elsewhere that we think we had some procedural problems that were on our part at the Legislative Coordinating Commission because, again, it's brand new. So I think that was made clear. The people who were upset about the way things went, I think, were pretty much placated, and they said, okay, yeah, they did fix that. In the meantime, there has been another 30-day, a second 30-day review, and that just finished yesterday as we shoot this program. And now there's a second hearing coming up. One of the things that was learned was to have it away from the council office. It should have done that in the first place, but hey, again,
I don't understand that, but
learning process. Learning process. This the next one will be at the Moose Lodge, and also too, it'll be done in the evening, which I guess a lot of people are happy about that. So people are working; they can actually.
Yeah. Again, participation from the community is essential. I mean, even if it's special interest groups who have businesses or association with this type of law, I mean, you have to give them the opportunity to express themselves or their concerns. Having it during the daytime may not be the best situation for everyone involved. So from the KLCC, we try to accommodate as much as possible. We'll have day sessions. There will be evening sessions, and we have had weekend sessions, to try and solicit as much as participation as possible. And obviously, we will take suggestions with the community feels may be appropriate to having them at a different location or a different time. We're open, it's not closed. The second part of the sanitary conditions law, now that it's going, we have to understand that the changes that are being made are made in relation to regulations, the body being able to make regulations. There may have been some misunderstanding in the beginning about the process, as you said, the community's involvement, and yes, it is, but in a Type 2 legislation, it's directed, it's regulatory in nature, so it's kind of directed by the elected body, which is the MCK, and they have the responsibility to ensure that any type of change in regulation ensures the protection and safety of the community first. That's should be that's your basis. Secondary, is if you're looking at economic development for the individual or for the community, taken into consideration. But it's got to be based on values and principles. It's not just because I want a specific law, this is what we need to do. there's a responsibility that the government has, and even us as community members, to ensure that we don't do something that would be detrimental to ourselves or our community.
And of course, one of the problems that came up in the first hearing was that the law was being changed to accommodate regulations, but because it's such an old law, some of the law itself, some people felt like, wait a second, I really don't like that. But it was beyond the scope at that point. And
no, but the beauty of the process is that as it plays itself out, those things are identified. And once they're identified, that means they can be addressed. So it does work. It's just the problem is that we didn't say that this is what we're going to address. The community that came in and looked at it and says, well, what about this and what about this and what about, well, maybe that's what we'll have to address. That's the difference.
so we hope that community members will be there to give their input. Hopefully there was good participation during the second 30-day review, but the actual meeting, the second reading, will be on Wednesday, November the 2nd. So that's during the run of this program. So if you're watching this show early, get to the meeting. Later on, well, you can give us your thoughts. And a good point, it will be at the Moose Lodge, 6 to 8 p.m., Kahnawake Moose Lodge, Wednesday, November 2nd. So that's what we have on that. And I guess finally at this point, we can look at the last piece of legislation that is now into the hopper more or less officially, because the announcement was made yesterday. Information sessions and information distribution has begun or is beginning for the proposed amendments to the electoral law. So that's a big one. One of the things, I spoke to Trina C. Dybel this morning. She's one of the technicians working on the file. And we had to be very careful on this because, of course, we're working with Chief and Counsel every day, but we have to be careful when we look at electoral law to make sure that it's not overly influenced in any way, even though Chief and Counsel, of course, are community members. But I think people say, well, is it being pushed by council? This is a community initiative. It came back. It came actually from Lori Jacobs, and the working group that is in place.
And
Darlene Alfred, yes, thank you very much, and Angus Montour. So these are three of the last four electoral officers that we've had in Kahnawake who are participating in the working group, along with a couple of the technicians. There are no chiefs on the working group. Again, that's a healthy thing, yes. I think.
I resent that.
I resemble that remark. But for I think reasons of for the right reasons.
Transparency, being objective. I mean,
well, actually, in this case, there could be the perception of a conflict.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's for practical reasons, but
we know that the request came from Lori some time ago, Lori Jacobs, in relation to
came from each of them actually.
Yeah, but it was reviewed by the MCK operations at one point within the Associate Executive Directors Committee. And realized that the changes had to be made, so it was sent off to LCC to put on the agenda, and OCC, which is responsible for the governance development part of it, assigned a technician to it, and they're going to be beginning their work now on doing the communication strategy to the community, and there will be interrelated laws that will probably affect the election law itself. I mean, part of the major concern at one time was the membership issue. How is it going to tie in? We have to be realistic about it.
Well, guys, thank you very much. That just about does it for our time here. I think we've covered all of the subjects that we needed to. And I'd like to thank you, Ron, for taking time, and Chief Bush.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and thank you for taking time to stay with us this afternoon or this evening, whenever you're watching, and hopefully this has helped you out, and we'll see you next time on Onkwarihwa'shon television. Yauko dano onigiwai.
Kanya ke haga tadi adaras de kayerniga hiadu zewaderoru.